So welcome. This is what we are talking about today. Welcome to my speech called Poetry in Motion with me, JP. Now, I want to set the tone early with this session. I want this to feel just like the image that you see in front of you. This is how I'm feeling right now. I want to impart to you a story and a message, and the story is very personal. The message is much more broad. But the way I see us all in this endeavor is just like this. There's me and there's all of you. We're all arm in arm. And I want you to feel the energy and feel the power of the story and the message with us all together, arm in arm. This is how I want the tone of this whole session, this whole speech, this whole exchange to be for us today. We're all in this together. We're all sharing this story, we're all sharing this message. This story begins on the 5th of September, 2005, with a lane very much like this one. I was at my mum and dad's house in Norfolk in England at the time, and I went out for a run. And going out for a run in the morning was not unusual for me, because at that point I'd been running for a good 15 years regularly. And this run was going to be different to any other run that I'd done in my life. So I started off as I normally would. Nice and slow, jog, jog, jog. I do some side steps, I do some grapevine, I go backwards, I go forwards, I go high knees, I kick my butt for a while. I get my body prepared for what was about to happen. But what was about to happen was a little bit different. My intention that day was I wanted to run as hard and fast as I possibly could. All I wanted to do, in fact, was get to the point where all I could think about was breathing. I wanted to run so hard, there was nothing else in my mind but focused on trying to breathe. And that may seem a strange thing, and it may seem maybe I was doing some form of intense and unusual training that required me to get to the point where I could not breathe. But that day it wasn't. That day, all I wanted to do was focus on breath, and it was the only way I knew how to do it. Because earlier that morning, I'd had a phone call from my dad, and it told me that my mum had finally passed away from lung cancer. And that was the reason I was in the country, because I wasn't living in the country at the time. And as you can imagine, the thoughts and the emotions overwhelmed me. And whilst that may have been 3 a.m. to get the phone call, and this may have only been 6:30 or 7 a.m., I was already engulfed in this significant amount of pain and anguish, and I just needed to think about anything else. And I couldn't think of another way other than just to go to what I knew and go to this place where I knew that if I could just take myself to this extreme, that maybe I could just forget about it just for that moment. And here's Mum. She's the center of our world at this point in time. This was about a year, just over a year before we lost her. It was actually a few days before we even found out that she had cancer. So it was the last photo we had where we all knew that life was just normal. Now, the reason that I've called this session Poetry in Motion is about to become clear, because I'd like to share with you a poem that I wrote about this time. And it's called You Are Gone and Still I Run. You are gone and out I run, down the lane, but not for fun, gradually faster to block it out, to stop the pain, to stop the shout. You are gone, and still I run. Speed increasing, but mind still racing, breathing harder, but not erasing the fact that you have left my world. Now the bundle just unfurled. You are gone, and still I run. Pounding feet, pumping arms, now I'm reaching more alarm. Breathing nearly taking over, close to reaching old Red Rover. You are gone, and still I run. Finally hitting my top speed, no more energy left to feed my aching legs and aching heart. But momentarily, we weren't apart. You are gone, and still I run. In those moments lacking air, gasping, retching, thoughts not there. The bitter irony of my actions at this stage had no traction. You are gone, and still I run. Now looking back, it seems forsaken to remove my breath when yours was taken. What was I thinking going there? Life and death seems so unfair. You are gone, and still I run. Realizing it's too much to hope that memories wash away with soap, I turn to thoughts of you with smiles. No more hurt, just resting a while. You are gone, and still I run. Bringing focus to the light, picturing your eyes shining bright. All those hugs, all that love, a mum, a gift from above. You are gone, and still I run. Your example taught me much, empathy, care, and human touch, silly jokes, the value of laughter, pointing to happily ever after. You are gone, and still I run. Now you're free, breathing deep, enjoying books and unbroken sleep, flying, jumping, bounding, singing. Joy abounds, the bells are ringing. You are gone, but your soul, it runs. As you can imagine, it was quite a time. And I hope that me sharing that time with you sits with you okay. Now, what was I really doing when I went out for that run? This is what I want to get back to. Because setting out with the intention of causing myself some form of harm and distress, it seems like an unusual thing to do. But as I said, I was looking for relief. I was running away from my pain, but unfortunately towards another pain. It was the only way I saw of actually leaving pain behind, was in some way masking it with another pain. It was effectively the work of an addict, because addicts have something that they're not happy with their life. And what do? Mask it with drugs or with alcohol or with food. And that's what I did. I took myself to another place of pain so that I could forget the pain that I was already in. I took the knife that was in my heart and I stabbed it firmly into my lungs. And this may sound like a really uncomfortable story to be saying and telling you right now. And it seems very, very negative, but it's not. It's about understanding what we do when we take ourselves to pain and where it's driven from. Because what I was expecting my body to do that day was look after me. I needed it to give me what I needed. My mind and my heart needed rest. So I asked my body to deliver that. But by putting my body through distress, by putting my body through pain. But it had to look after me. So I made it look after me. And I only got those few seconds of rest, but it looked after me. It was kind of like my farm. It was there to provide me nourishment, to provide me safety. But the thing about a farm, of course, is that we need to nurture a farm. We need to feed the animals. We need to make sure the crops are looked after. We need to cut the hay. We need to mend the fence. We need to make sure that the chimney doesn't fall down on the house. that is not an act that I was doing at the time. I wasn't nourishing myself. What I did was I chose to damage the farm in order to give my mind and heart what it needed. And why was I doing this? Well, at this point in time, I was part of a culture that meant that if we were to improve, if things were to get better for us, when it comes to movement, actually pain is the answer. Because we're in this world where the common themes are exactly what you see on your screen right now. Train sane or remain the same. The pain you feel today will be the strength you feel tomorrow. No pain, no gain, shut up and train. Or the slightly more clever, no pain, no gain. And it goes on and it gets amusing, but it all means the same thing. If it's not hurting, it's not working. One does not simply retrieve items from the floor after leg day. There's Arnie and Stallone. So for me, at this point in time in my world, what it basically meant was, wow, so pain must be good when it comes to movement, when it comes to exercise. We need to create pain in order to get better. Now, the thing that resonates for me with this is that in no other part of our lives do we consider pain to be a good thing. So, for example, I once had gallstones. Now, what happened was it made me pain, and it gave me pain, and it made me throw up. Okay. My body, therefore, was telling me that something really isn't right. It was really uncomfortable, very distressing for my system, and I needed to seek help. I certainly wasn't looking to create that for myself 5 days out of 7 for life. Similarly, when my firstborn came into the world and my wife had to go for surgery immediately after the birth, it had been already quite traumatic. My emotions had taken a beating, and I was told that my wife would be gone for 30 minutes, for half an hour, whilst they just helped. So there was me with my newborn on my chest in the waiting room, and 30 minutes went by, and I didn't see my wife. Nothing happened. No message came through. And I started to feel a bit anxious. And then an hour went by and still no wife. And at this point, I'm really getting highly perturbed. And my little baby Emma really wanted to feed. She's getting very restless too. So you could feel the anxiety from both of us. And then an hour and a half went by. And still Anna hadn't appeared. And at this point, I'm beside myself because I think that I've got a new member of my family has come into the world, and I'm about to lose a member of my family. And then Anna appears. All is well with the world. But do I want to put myself through that emotional pain 5 days a week out of 7 for life? Because in some way, that is going to make me stronger. As I say, in no other realm in our life do we look at pain, mental, emotional, or physical, and say, this is a desirable thing. This is a desirable act for my body so that I can get better. No, of course not. I had a business previously. Mental stress was so severe that after 6 years, I ended up not even being myself. I was a grumpy, very irritable human being, not this happy-go-lucky chap that everyone knows these days. And that's because of mental stress. It had broken me. And to this day, I still feel that the stress of that time has left me damaged when it comes to my stress tolerance and my stress resilience. Did it make me better? No. No. All of those things were times when my body was saying, please help. Now, a lot of people listening to my message right now will think that just like this piece of machinery here, is that in some way, this is a thing of the past. These attitudes are a thing of the past. That pain, when it comes to exercise, is actually absolutely a misnomer these days. That we live in such an enlightened time that in no way would these attitudes still exist. And I would agree with you, except that the world and the circles and the friends that I have are all a very similar mind to me. So I can get fooled into thinking that this is absolutely the new normal. It's normal not to expect pain, and it's normal not to seek pain from your exercise. But as part of my growth, what I do is I make sure that I know what else is going on out there. So I am members of groups on social media that do not align with my values and with my principles, so that I can understand what else is out there. And the amazing thing when you do that is that it's a real injection of reality to the system. So I'm a member of one group, it's global. There are 74,000 members in this group, and it's an exercise group. And just last week, there was a post, and it said, "Hi, so I've just started an exercise modality and I've done 2 sessions, and today I'm aching all over so bad, I have to crawl up the stairs, and getting up and down off the sofa is a major task. My shoulders ache, my hands ache. Will this happen after every session?" So in our enlightened world and in our enlightened minds, we might know what people might say to that, because I know what I would say to that, yeah? So our first comment comes through. "Is there any reason you can't take a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug like Motrin or Aleve? I usually take Aleve first thing in the morning and wait an hour or 2 before I work out. I still get sore from time to time, but it's manageable." Further down, "Yeah, I'm older than you and I've been training for about four years, and I love it. But I have muscle soreness pretty much all the time." And then this one, which I feel like is the nice shiny turd on the poo cake. "When I started, I was in agony for about 120 days. Amazingly, after that, the soreness started to decrease. It taught me an important lesson, that if I can push past that point, then I will be okay." Whew. And it leads me to this question, is why would we do that? Now, poem number 2 that I have for you is very much written with a stereotype in mind and with my natural sarcastic bent. And it's called that one word, why. "I awake to harsh sounds which gradually fade. Then for breakfast, nutritional razor blades, washed down with a concoction of acid I made. Then liquid amphetamine to bring light to my shade. Off to work on a bike with a spike for a saddle, to a job so stressful, my brain, it addles. Spend most of the day up the creek, no paddle. Finally the day ends, and I can skedaddle. Next is to training, to go hard till I break. Endure shouting and flogging, all for my sake. By the end I'm in pain, but make no mistake. I'm sure it's all good. All I do is shake. To confirm I was right, the next day I can't walk. Yes, I think to myself with a voice like Bjork. I try a few steps, but like a vegan on pork, it just isn't working. I feel like a dork. I think to myself, if I'm hurting so much, imagine the benefits, I'm sore to the touch. Sure, I can't walk without meds and a crutch, but I can still drive if my wife does the clutch. The pain reassures me I'm doing the right thing, because no pain, no gain, in my ears it does ring. My friends are so jealous of the sting that's within, feeling shortchanged because their arms aren't in slings. I missed the training on Wednesday and Friday. That's how good the training was Monday. The weekend gets spent on the couch, but hey, The anti-inflammatories need to have their say. The kids don't mind me not joining in with hiking and playing while I drink some gin. My exercise is so good, it eliminates your grin. And kids understand that's how you win. Life's not meant to be easy. Movement is pain. Rinse and repeat, kids, again and again. To see the sunshine, stand in the rain. Keep taking the poison and just don't complain. It only takes a week for the ache to subside. Time to repeat, although I must confide, it's starting to feel wrong to end up so fried. I'm getting so sick, feeling dead inside. Is it possible the story I've been told by all isn't lifting me up but creating the fall? How do I stop myself hitting the wall? Nah, doing new things, I'll feel like a fool. I'll just work the crap job and faceplant at night. Changing just now would be such a fight. I'll wait a bit longer till the feeling is right. Life's already too tough to start a rewrite. So let's fast forward on our story to October 2007. So I finally reached the start line of a marathon, which obviously doesn't necessarily sound that significant, but the significance for me was that in 2005, before I lost my mum, but whilst we knew she had cancer and whilst we knew we had limited time with her, I'd entered a marathon and was going to run it for Macmillan Cancer Relief. And that was a charity that did palliative care for cancer patients. And my mum was already receiving the benefits of their amazing work. So what I was going to do was I would run a marathon. I would demonstrate my love of running, whilst at the same time my love of my mum, whilst at the same time do something good whilst my mum was still in the world and make her proud. And I flew back from Fuerteventura, where I was living at the time. And I got sick almost the moment I landed. And I thought maybe it's psychosomatic, but no. The day before, I was actually in bed with flu. And it meant that I was definitely not going down to London to run this marathon. More than that, though, is obviously most people can just go, okay, then I'll just do it next year. And I could defer until next year. But of course, really what I knew when I wasn't going to do that marathon was it meant that mum would never see me do that. So I put it forward to a half marathon that was happening later in the year and accepted that this may be something that never happens while mum is with us in this world. So the next time I was due to run a marathon, guess what? I was in the wrong country. And then finally, the third time of asking, I reached the start line. And by this time, my life is completely different. I'm a PT. So when I lost mum, everything changed for me. It was a complete catalyst for a complete life change for me. So now I'm a PT. I'm living in Edinburgh. And I'm with my lovely wife-to-be, Anna. Life is generally good. And I decide I'm going to don the shirt for Macmillan Cancer Relief and I'd run for mum. So that's what my story was. I was there running for charity, doing this thing, and I was running for mum. Now, when you get prepared for a marathon, you do a lot of miles. So for each marathon, which if we're talking in miles, 26.2 miles, for each marathon, I would do around 1,000 miles in training. So I tried to make the start line of 3 marathons at this point. So I'd done 1,000 miles in training for each one. And I'd had to ignore a lot of pain and a lot of niggles and a lot of signals from my body that things weren't really quite right. But again, I was expecting my body to deliver. And as I went through that race, I felt remarkably good for about the first half. And then all those little niggles were making themselves known. And then as I got towards the end, it was really, really difficult. But I kept running and emotions kept coming up, and I have to keep batting them away until I crossed the finish line, when, of course, my emotions erupted. Now, the story of that time I'll tell you in poem form in just a second, but what I'm doing again here is that there was so much tied up in this run that what I needed for my head and for my heart was for my body to deliver. So the idea of listening to any issues that might be going on there, well, I had to push them to the back. They weren't shouting loudly, so push them to the back, because things were so much more important than a few aches and pains at the time. And ignoring those signals was culturally supported, as has been previously shown. And despite the issues that are created in themselves from that run, I was still back a year later with this adage that endurance running was all in the head. Now, as you can probably see from that picture on the left, things aren't quite right with the way I'm running. And it's because from marathon number 1, I was pretty broken. I developed some horrendous problems with plantar fasciitis, to the point where I was only running once a week and spending a lot of time on rowing machines. But again, it was just like a foot thing, right? It was just my foot. If I could just chop the foot off and then put another one on, I'd be fine. And it's not quite what goes on when it comes to looking after your body. Poem 3 is called Ups and Downs, and it's about this time in my life. 3 attempts in, at last a marathon was beckoning. It was a trial, but I'd reached this day of reckoning. At the start line with excitement and anticipation, hoping Mum was watching and giving her ovation. It had taken 3 months of prep, ignoring pain and tiredness, overthinking sleepless nights due to so much wiredness. That little niggle in my hip, the back that ached some days, I successfully managed to ignore them in clever little ways. If I disconnected my brain from all below, the body will just do the job because I told it so. So that's what I did, and it seemed to work. With brain in charge, no work was shirked. Back by the lock, it started all downhill. Along I sped. It was really quite a thrill, going so fast with so much before me. Knowing a quick first half was key. I tried to absorb the beauteous surroundings whilst I was running, skipping and bounding. Then the second half brought the hard yards. Now I had to ponder more than picture postcards. I got to 17 miles when ahead of me was all climb. With each brow I reached, all I saw was more incline. Every summit revealed another, feeling steeper than before. My legs grew very weary, and my heart then lost its roar. Inside the final miles, the realization started hitting. About to finish a marathon, a badge for never quitting. Mum kept appearing in my head, and I politely asked, "Please, Mum, not before I complete this mammoth task." I fought back emotion until the final step was done. Then heart's door burst open, the outpouring began. Mum enveloped me in love and pride and joy, and once again, I was her little Johnny boy. I'd run a marathon for Mum, for me, for everyone. I was finally released from this extraordinary burden. Meanwhile, my body was feeling sorry and uncertain. It couldn't conceal the damage behind the problem curtain. It's like I'd felt above the law, the body's law, in fact. Like I could bash away and somehow stay intact, when really all I did was stage attack after attack, my poor body flailing as its riches were ransacked. So holding out an olive branch, my body said, "Don't fight us. Listen carefully, or you'll get plantar fasciitis." Soon after, foot pain had me feeling not so righteous. Now I could no longer run. My life had lost its brightness. In an instant, I was ready to listen and do whatever's needed. But with so many warnings and messages unheeded, restoring planet me was tough. When I'd made it so depleted, more problems came before treatment was completed. The surgeon's knife came there next, quicker than rehab. Get science to help me with one accurate little stab. The result was that nerves instead did grab. Now my ankle was the problem. Better call a cab. Meanwhile, my body was sitting there bemused, being punished for crimes of which it hadn't been accused. Why won't you listen? I'm really not amused. Feeling undervalued and incredibly misused. 1 year passed and it was clear my ankle was unstable, like being at a restaurant with that wonky-legged table. The nerve pain went, but still I felt a little bit disabled. Now the other foot had the pain with exactly the same label. My body still stopped me running or moving with fluidity, but really it was protecting me against my own stupidity. If I couldn't listen, it would lock down in rigidity anything that was under threat with absolute validity. Did I learn my lesson or change my ways at all, respond to my body's ever louder call? Slowly I coaxed a mind that felt hard against the wall. Mentally I couldn't run or walk, just settle for a crawl. My body's voice tiring fast, but I listened at last. Being countercultural meant remaining so steadfast that all the voices in my head and in the past had to be ignored to fix this broken craft. What did I do to mend this ship struggling in the ocean? Well, that's the story of this speech, called Poetry in Motion. So here I am, or am I? Have I just put the wrong screen up? Let me come back here. There we go. Here I am. That's the 2008 marathon right there. Here was the fallout from the surgery. So that's a normal size ankle on the right there, just to give you perspective. So serious issues. And then once the swelling went down, it was obvious that I had nerve impingement too. So it created more problems and yes, created more pain. And my body was just shouting, what on earth are you doing? And it is like I had noise cancelling earphones on, which blocked out all the body's noise. So what was really going on, and what's not just going on with me, but what's really going on with people who accept that pain is part of our process, that pain is a thing that we should seek to improve. Because finally, for me, pain stopped me in my tracks. Pain will continue to shout louder until it does that to get your attention. So what was going on for me? Well, this giant 10-year-old that you see on the right hand of the photo here, this tells a story. So this was a happy occasion, my sister's wedding in 1980. And Mum was the center of all of us. And I was lucky enough to grow up in this incredibly loving family. It was an incredibly loving home. And Mum at the center was just constantly, she would always be telling us how much she loved us. And I was in no doubt that that was the case. But one of the things that really stands out throughout my childhood was that whenever I did something good, and it didn't need to be big, it could just be some nice handwriting or draw a good picture or, you know, do well at something at school. My mum was there and she would be so giving with her praise. So for me, achievement was a big thing in my world, achieving things. Because that was the outward expression, a really vocal, experiential part of my growing up that meant that one of the big ways that I experienced love growing up was through my mum's praise. So achievement, therefore, got connected to love, and specifically my mum's love. When running came into my life, it was my early 20s. I very much felt like I wasn't achieving, especially in my work. So life was really falling short for me in terms of what I wanted to feel from it. Running comes along and it gives me this great way of focusing my mind on something at which I could achieve. And then as I went through and I did achieve, I'm looking for a photo here. As I went on and I did achieve, then fantastic. I got all those beautiful flood of emotions that came with achievement. And it was a way that I could connect with those feelings of love. So for me, running gave me that sense of achievement. It gave me that sense of pride. It gave me a sense of self-esteem and happiness, at least each day that I'd competed in an event. So for me, running became about love. And specifically, in my case, my mum's love, right? So let's look at other forms of exercise and what people might want from their exercise, because everyone commonly will have a goal, and it's never their goal, but it's the surface goal that they talk about. You know, they want to change size. They want to improve their strength. They want, maybe like me, to achieve more things. They maybe want an appearance change. They might want to work harder or be able to work for longer. But what does that really mean underneath? No one actually necessarily just wants those things. What do those things stand for? So again, they stand for self-esteem, or being worthy, or having the approval of those around us. What do all those things spell out truly? Well, for me, and you can by all means disagree with me, but really what everyone is seeking from most things in life is the reassurance of love. And we go about it in lots of different ways. So when it comes to exercise and movement, a heap of people may have a surface reason like, oh, I must lose weight, or I must get healthy. But truly underneath it, there is so much more. There is such a deeper drive to that. And really at the bottom of everything is we want to experience love, be loved and love in return. So as you can imagine, if that's part of our identity and we've got a bit of backache, why would that be significant enough to prevent us from going after love? On the other side of back pain is love. So I just go through that pain. On the other side of knee pain is love. So I'm just going to go through that pain. Embracing the pain is an act of love. It's not an act of love, of course, but that's how it gets wired. And our culture supports that. I don't know how many times when I was a PT and I was introducing myself to someone at an event and they would go, oh yeah. And they just assumed that what I was about was putting people through pain for their own benefit. Now, of course, I'm a family man myself. And I know that achievement doesn't mean love. I know love is there, whatever. These little so-and-sos will have my love, whatever they are doing. They don't need to be achieving. They will just be loved. So when we look at other people and what they're looking for, and the changes that they're looking for, our culture supports that going through pain will get them there. That going through pain will bring the self-esteem, will bring the love. And that's what's hardwired into so many identities out there. And it's the only explanation, to be honest with you, that I can understand why people would actively seek pain for improvement. Because as I've said before, in no other world and part of our world would we actively seek pain unless it's to get more of this. Because that is the ultimate prize. And pain is how you get it when it comes to exercise. And then as I learned more about the body and I realized that there were chemicals released, we are supported not just culturally, but also chemically in our behaviors. Because if we can get through pain and achieve, we'll get some dopamine because we've made progress and we've got some reward. If we can get through pain, we'll feel greater self-esteem and greater significance, social significance, serotonin. And if we can get through pain, it means that we can seek love. So oxytocin is our connection hormone, our love hormone, a bonding hormone. And endorphin, well, that's a complicated one because throw some high effort and variety into things and we get some endorphin and some adrenaline. Now together they behave to mask pain. So if we think back to the run that I did, where I was putting a high intensity effort in, not only was I trying to run myself so that all I could think about was breathing, but also endorphin would come along and go, hey, don't worry, I'm going to mask some of that pain for you as well. And those people who are addicted to exercise, high intensity exercise, and you can see them gradually wasting away, well, their bodies are giving them endorphin each time they do that high intensity work. So of course, it's both masking the pain and making them feel good at the same time. So they're not necessarily our happy chemicals, they're actually our survival chemicals. What they do is they tell us to repeat behaviors that deliver those things. Now, there are other ways to get those chemicals, and we don't have to go through pain to experience them. But there are a lot of reinforcements, both culturally and chemically for us, that will reinforce this idea that pain is pretty much equal to love. And this brings me to Searching, poem number 4 today. And I'd like to share that with you. In our search for love, humans seem to get quite lost, thinking the formula is complicated, mysterious, and elusive. Our minds create pathways and our wires get crossed. And before we know it, it all appears rather abusive. Especially with movement, the complexity only grows. Culture and history link pain to physical prowess. And we all bought it, but how? Heaven only knows. Now pain means love. It's just a silly mess. Because actively seeking pain for us or someone else is not an act of love, however you describe it. At best, it's masking other pain hidden in ourselves. At worst, an act of fear, if only we'd admit. The simplicity we seek needs courage week on week to make the choices toward the unity of 3D. Mind, body, and heart together, they must speak for each other, to each other, and build harmony. Having one realm in pain to bring the others their needs is never the path to balance and peace. They are one and the same. Cut one, they all bleed, until finally vital parts just cease. How do we change such a widely held notion, educate a culture so indoctrinated and damaged? Start with yourself, movement, mind, and emotion, seeking joy in all with every decision you can manage. Love for self is loving others, and in return comes love. You show the way, be your best, and let them know. When they reach for help, your hand becomes their glove. Yes, look what you're doing, changing the status quo. So this image pretty much sums up what I'd been doing for years before. Was I had such a narrow lens on the world, focusing completely the wrong direction, that I was missing the riches and the richness of life. I'd pretty much taken crops from my farm year on year without giving anything back. And it was time that I started fertilizing the farm. But what did I do? Well, as I say, I had to take off those lenses. I had to open my eyes, and I had to embrace whatever else was out there to find my calling, to find my way to love that didn't involve pain, because love will always beat pain, except when it can't. I'd got to a point where pain had shouted loud enough that I couldn't hear anything else. So I had to look elsewhere. So I experimented. This photo with this silly grin on my face, it brings me a smile for two reasons. Number one, I'm obviously quite nervous at this point in time. I'm in 1 minute of free fall, and it's a scary place, but at the same time, an exhilarating place. The other reason it gives me a smile is because of what I'm doing with my hands. Those cupped palms there, I'm doing on purpose, because in some way I thought if I cupped my hands, somehow that would slow down the free fall significantly, which it obviously did not. So I got to experimenting. I got to embracing this idea that what I would do is, can I just try some new stuff? Can I just do some stuff just purely for the fun of doing it? New things, new tools, experimentation. Here I am on a beach throwing a viper around. So not only was I trying to experiment with new things and use new tools and move in new ways, but it had to be playful, and it had to be in locations that I adored. And then with my work, taking it to locations that I loved, and then sharing the message with other people, teaching adults that play was still very much a part of life and very much should be embraced, to look for joy in our movement. My question that I just kept asking whenever I was planning my own movement or that of others is there a way I can make this fun? I try to put joy at the center. I saw joy as an act of self-love. And I took my message out there to the masses. This was 2013, which was an amazing year for me. And here's my very first session, an outdoor session in New Zealand, my very first session in New Zealand. And that was the end. And you can see it definitely has the desired effect. When you do this, these faces do not look like they are in pain. And I tried new ways of moving. So one of the things that people who follow me will know that whilst I may not be very good at it, I am a lover of animal flow. And the reason I do that is because it makes my body feel wonderful. So one of the big things that I kind of try to get across to people is, hey, does your body feel good during, and does it feel great after you exercise? Because previously things hadn't quite done that for me. I felt kind of okay during, and then pretty bad afterwards when I'd done the types of training that I'd done in the past, in the ways that I'd done it. Whereas things like this, I looked forward to doing them. Then I did them and it felt great. And then afterwards, I felt better than I did before. These are all markers for me that should denote whether movement is right for you or not. And as I say, it can be anything. So I got more and more playful, and like I say, I did lots of things that I'd never done before. I've never done anything vaguely gymnastic, and I just experimented. When my kids came along, it meant that I was able to connect with them better because my mind was open. My ego was parked at the door. My mind was open, and I was able just to join in. That picture on the left there was probably only taken a couple of weeks ago. And there we are. I'm the biggest of the 4 children in our family. And that picture on the right, I just had to include because it's just one of pure joy. Rolling down a hill, rolling down a grass hill. Like, when was the last time you did that? It's joyful and it's good for our body, because if we can align the joy of mind and the joy of heart and the joy of movement all at the same time, the benefits far outweigh all the drawbacks, because pain is a stressor. So does stress improve our function in any realm? Does stress improve our function mentally? Does stress improve our function emotionally? Does stress improve our function physically? Of course not. So my mindset changed. I finally was of the mind that if there's no pleasure, there's no treasure. And could it be possible that we could live a life of no pain, more gain? That was my question. Now, I know what you're thinking at this point in time. Well, surely you need to be challenged in some way. I'm the guy that created the meme, changes within challenge. Well, absolutely. Change is absolutely within challenge. And absolutely, we should challenge ourselves. If we want change, if we want growth, if we want to learn, if we want to change for the better, if we want to go through life and continuously evolve, we need challenge. Do we need pain? We need challenge. This hangs on my wall in my creative space here in Perth, and it's been with me for many years. And in the early days, it meant something quite different to what it means now. But what it doesn't say is life begins at the start of your pain zone. It says life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Yes, we can get uncomfortable. Yes, we need to feel discomfort in order to improve. Pain, not so much. And guess what happened during that time? I started to heal. Suddenly, running that I thought was no longer on the menu for me at all, ever, 3 years after I'd run that final marathon, it was back on the menu. So I call this next piece Discovery. And it's about that time and the emotions that I felt. I came to realize my trials were gifts, and whilst resolution wasn't always swift, it healed a very important rift. My mind and heart went through a shift when previously they were adrift from body who'd been sorely missed. Now in unity, they would lift each other like a musical riff, dancing together, not just exist. Previous patterns had been dismissed. My cultural blinkers had fallen away, revealing movement in new ways. I'll try anything and call it play. Look at new things, however cliche. My mind was open like nature's protege. It was time for the body to be repaid for all that torture and dismay. Every day, my body's birthday. I would treat it like sunshine's rays. Warmth and joy were here to stay. From now, the central number one was all things carried joy and fun. Whatever it was, however it's done, the feeling had to be like you've just won. It was all up for grabs, life had begun. Smacking a noodle on someone's bum, hit a balloon or carry a nun, holding a weight like 007's gun, or balancing carefully while eating wontons. To me, it was all second to none. Reviewing the action, I had found a few faves. Running was back, but next to the waves. Play was something my body just craved, and then a new thing, animal shapes. The old stuff was fine, it just didn't rave. There were heaps of new moves, some from the cave. Beasts and crabs helped my body behave, and to my mind and heart they gave permission to create my own enclave of movement I loved, so my life was saved. It was like some awesome epiphany. I discovered how it was meant to be. The more I did, the more I was free, free to see that I could be me. My heart just sang, my body said, see, this is our holy trinity. Mind, heart, and body, no absentees. We're all here together for the party. This may be a message so scary, you'll flee. It's kind of like we're built to move naturally. So I set sail into this new land with mind and body holding hands, each other's fervent, raving fans, steering the ship and making new plans for a future together, you understand. Creating a unique and personal brand of movement so life would be grand, so powerful a force and with such command. Confidence rock solid, built to withstand any cultural attempt to reprimand. And in fact, like Elsa, I'd let it go, embrace the life of presence and my own flow, not thinking of what's a yes or what's a no, just what's right for me. It was all my show. I shared my thoughts with passion in full stereo. Then to harvest the crops from the seeds I'd sown came new friends to help to build my manifesto of fun, self-perpetuating like a dynamo. We became our own community, living in the know. And to this day, every day, it grows and grows and grows. So running groups returned because I could run again. I was able to come back and live a full life. All the fun things that came, I'd completed this journey into self, which meant I found joy at the center of everything, not pain. Pain was no longer part of my life. And whenever my body gave me signals, I listened before they became loud and before they stopped me from doing anything. It was healing. I was able to take running groups to running events. And in 2013, as I say, it was a big year. My first child was born, my daughter. I did my first session in New Zealand, which I loved. And 5 days before a running event, the City to Surf here in Perth, I had 2 athletes that were going to go into it. I decided what I might do is I'll just go out and I'll run the course. And I went out that day on a random Tuesday and I ran a marathon just in training because I wanted to be able to give them the benefit of knowing that course intimately, but also just see if I could do it. And sure enough, I could. 3 years later in 2016, that's when I'd been playing with this running on the sand a lot more, and I completed a half marathon on soft sand. So I took my message out, and all I wanted to do was share this message of joy and share this message that pain shouldn't be at the center of improvement. Joy and love and parking your ego should be at the center of movement and exercise and our experiences. And as you can see, there aren't many grimacing faces there. These are faces of laughter and smiles and joy. Did it mean they were not challenged? Absolutely not, because we can challenge ourselves, but base it in joy. Training for some looked very different to their events, but that didn't matter because it worked. So life became fun and joyful. The more I learn about play, and the way we relax and recover and grow, the more I learned about flow state, the more I realized that life was really about being in the moment, having fun, being playful. And just like Alan Watts says, this is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it's play. So I created this kind of manifesto. These are the questions that I would encourage you to ask yourselves and to ask your clients and your friends when they look at their exercise, their movement, their activity. It doesn't matter what it is. Do you lose track of time? Because being in the moment is rest from the rest of their world. It's what I was trying to do, was run myself into the moment on the 5th of September 2005, nearly 15 years ago. Is it fun for you? And does it bring you joy? Because we know that if we lift our spirits, if we lift our emotions, our positive emotions create a different state in our physical tissues of our body so that we will actually operate more optimally. Does it challenge you just enough? So in other words, is it congruent to your abilities? Because if it's set too high, we'll become disengaged because we can't actually reach success. If it's set too low, we'll become disengaged because it's boring. It's not enough of a challenge. We need the challenge. It needs to be of equal or just above the state that we are currently in. Do you get completely absorbed? Do you get lost in it? Again, full absorption so that you lose track of time is very, very important. So you are in that moment and completely embodying the experience. Are you excited just by the thought of doing it? Because again, if you are not, you need to look at the list of things that are out there, because the list is endless of things that you can do, whether they're called exercise or not. And do you feel good before, during, and afterwards? Because a lot of things you don't feel so good afterwards. And that is, again, your body's giving you signals that maybe this isn't quite right for you. So we've come a little way from that lad that went out for a run 15 years ago to create some pain to mask some other pain, to this point where we've got a big lad who's actually trying to unify with joy these three states of mental, emotional, and physical, knowing that one cannot be at the expense of the others. This is very much an unfinished story. Of course, life is an unfinished story, yeah? But this year is the year when I choose to put a nice little underline. I'm writing a book called Joy in Motion right now. And it starts with that story of my mum, but it will end with another run. It'll end with a run that I'm going to do this year to celebrate me being 50. I want to run 50 kilometers on soft sand. This is the beach where I'll be running. It's literally a minute's walk from my door right here. And it's part of what I call my 50 at 50 challenge. And it will be the final crowning moment of this 15-year story, where I want to show that something this big and this challenging is still done with joy and is still done for fun, despite it being probably so hideous to a lot of you watching today. And one of the great things that happens when I'm on the beach is that back when my mum's ashes were scattered, they were scattered in the ocean. So whenever I want to be close to my mum, I can be by the ocean, put my feet in the ocean, and I can speak to my mum. So being next to the water, I feel connected to her because, of course, if I put my feet in the water, wherever those ashes are, I am connected to them physically, and I can share in that time. So given that my book's going to be called Joy in Motion, it seems only fitting that my final poem for you guys today is also called Joy in Motion. And here it is. I hope by now the message is clear That movement works best with good cheer, with joy at its center, banishing fear, loving yourself, no need for tears, unless tears of joy, then all clear. In every realm, you can be healed. Movement, mind, and emotions sealed with joy. Its loving embrace reveals. You can let go of what your ego conceals and just live your truth to your own ideals. Be the example at first and then lead more. Show them joy is the prize, what it's all for, because joy means love and all it adores. Starting with you, self-love for sure. Let's see what the world has in store. I've told you my story, but it's not about me. It was to show you we can change reality, change the culture, help set people free, change their ideas, how to live happily, change how they move so they can just be. Let's show the world that motion is the lotion, the soothing balm, the dip in the ocean, the high in your day, life's secret potion, the concept to which we give our devotion, as we all give power to joy in motion. And note how the letters are a clever acronym. Spelling J-I-M, we can say Jim is the new gym. Not that you can't have Jim in your gym. It's all about intention rather than just a whim. To actively choose joy in motion, Jim for the win. And to my mum, who has watched me slowly evolve, unraveling life's mysteries, leaving some unsolved, I say now I'm moving with all planes involved, and each at its center has love revolve. The pain of the past is all resolved. So whilst you are gone and still I run for me, I run for fun. I run on the beach and in the sun, and with you in the water, watching on, both souls are free, mother and son. I just want to say to everyone listening today, thank you for joining me for this story and this message. Obviously, biggest thanks to my mum, who has inspired so much in my world across the years and changed my life completely, both when she was in it and even when she left this world. She completely changed my life. And thank you to my friends who I've ignored for these past 2 weeks. And thank you, of course, to my wife and family, because without them, I couldn't do the things that I do and the things that I love. And thank you to Erica for organizing this incredible event and giving me the opportunity to share this amazing message. And thanks to you for being here to hear this message that means so much to me. And that is me signing off, saying thank you for being you. Thanks.
Thank you, JP. That was a really powerful message you built into that story, and really